forum. Tonight we're focusing on affairs of the heart. So we mean that we want to focus on the heart spiritually, emotionally, as well as physically. We overall want to be healthier and happier. And so I want to say a big welcome to you all. I don't know if we have any first timers on tonight. If you are joining us for the first time, special welcome to you. Just let us know. You can just unmute your mic quickly or just drop it in the chat. Tell us where you're from if this is your first time joining us. I don't know if we have anyone here from the other regions. Do we have anyone here from Canada? Do we have anyone here from the States? Let us know in the chat. We want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. We really appreciate that you have taken the time out to share this space with us. Tonight is going to be very exciting. That are ready to really, divulge some information to us so that we can learn more. Knowledge is power. And as we say, we want to learn as much as we can so that we can become healthier. The more we know, the better it is for us, right? We have Dr. Terry and Martells-Hylton in the house. She's going to be one of our speakers. We also have Mr. Samuel McDermott, and we also have Dr. William Fust, and we will be hearing from them a little later. Just a few reminders. Remember to keep your microphones on mute until it is a case where we ask a question. Once it is that you have been acknowledged, we ask you to go ahead and unmute to share with us. And we're just going to jump right into it tonight. We are going to begin with a short presentation from our very own in-house doctor, general practitioner, Dr. Terry Martells. Is she on? All right, Dr. Hylton, are you ready?
Yeah.
Awesome. Over to you.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right.
Good evening.
So I'm going to be sharing my screen. So tonight, basically, I've been given a task to speak about heart healthy foods. So, it's all about affairs of the heart tonight. Hope everybody is ready and raring to go. So heart healthy foods. If we look at this picture here, we see some lovely foods in this bowl here. I know Raven is always putting up these nice pictures of these different types of foods and so on her WhatsApp. But this just gives an idea of what heart healthy foods looks like. All right, so I'm going to start by asking a question because we have to understand the importance of why we need to be eating healthy. So can anyone tell me what are the key modifiable, that's a big word, risk factors for cardiovascular disease? If you didn't know, cardiovascular disease is the most common cause of death worldwide and in Jamaica as well. So heart disease and all the conditions associated with that make it the #1 cause of death. So what are the modifiable, meaning things that we can change, things that we have control over? What are some of the modifiable risk factors for heart and blood vessel disease? Can anyone tell me? Something that you can change or something that you have control over.
Your diet, of course, fatty foods.
All right, so that's good. think somebody's typing in the chat. I can't look at it. What about different diseases that can cause cardiovascular disease?
Hypertension.
Yes. If you say hypertension, you must say
Diabetes as well.
yes. Hypertension, diabetes, hypercholesterolemia, which means high cholesterol, which a lot of people in our population have. Lack of different things such as lack of physical activity, obesity, or being overweight. Smoking is one as well.
Right.
But those are things that we can change. So how can we, what should we include in our diet? So in this overview, I will be discussing about choosing whole grains, limiting unhealthy fats, choosing low-fat protein sources, reducing salt in the diet, which is a big one, and planning meals. So let me just say this is by no means exhaustive list because there's much more that we can all do. So about choosing whole grains. Whole grains are good sources of fiber, and they also have other nutrients in them that play a role in regulating your blood pressure and your heart health. You can increase the amount of whole grains in a heart-healthy diet by making simple substitutions for refined grain products. When we say refined grain products, we mean like the white flour, the white rice, those things. We need to substitute them with actual whole grains, like the actual brown rice, wheat flour. So that is something simple that we can institute. Or we may decide to try a new whole grain. Some persons have been trying quinoa. Not sure how many persons know about quinoa, but there are other whole grains that you may want to try, like farro or barley. So, as I mentioned before, choosing whole wheat flour, whole grain bread instead of the white bread, high fiber cereal, whole grains such as brown rice, barley, or buckwheat, whole grain pasta, and oatmeal. Those are some of the things that we can institute, we can put in our diet. If you look at the picture here, we see a lot of different whole grains. And if you notice, it's a lot of browns. So if you're eating a lot of, and we're all guilty of it because it's just our culture of how we grow up. And sometimes it's a cheaper version as well. So that's why a lot of persons may just decide that they can't really afford to do it. But if you check it out, the bread, if you check out the bread, brown bread, well, I'm thinking, because usually I buy brown bread, but I think it's a similar price to white bread. All right, so one thing we discussed about choosing whole grains. So you can just look in your cupboard, see what you need to go, and what you can substitute. I think the questions will be later on. So if anybody have any question in the chat, I can't really see it. No. All right, limiting unhealthy fats. Unhealthy fats means like saturated fats. Those are fats that are solid at room temperature, meaning that if you put it on if you have it out on the cupboard, it's solid. Trans fats have been found to be very harmful, and so most of the foods nowadays, they have cut out trans fats out of it. If we limit the unhealthy fats, we reduce our cholesterol. So cholesterol, when you hear about cholesterol, it's basically a type of fat in the blood. Limiting unhealthy fats lowers your risk of coronary artery disease, which is the blood vessels that supply the heart. What a high blood cholesterol level can lead to a buildup of plaques in your arteries, and this is called atherosclerosis. I know it's a big word, but you might hear it sometime in the future, so I just put the correct term there. and this can increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. So in this picture, there are some healthy fats in this picture that I will be discussing in the next slide. So what can you do? And I'm talking about real practical things. Trim the fat off your meat or choose lean meat. That means meat with less fat. And this is something simple that we can do. Also, what I do when I'm cooking my chicken, I don't have to use oil in there. Use less butter, margarine, and shortening when you're cooking. Use low-fat substitutions when possible. So if you're going to the supermarket, you choose something that has a lower fat content. When you do use fats, choose mono unsaturated fats, such as your olive oil or canola oil. You can also choose polyunsaturated fats, and these are found in certain fish, avocados, nuts and seeds. And remember that moderation is essential because all types of fats are high in calories. So not just because I say you can choose olive oil or you can choose pear, avocado, what we call pear, avocado, then that means you must go and eat a lot of it. Because remember, it still has a lot of calories. So whatever you're doing, do it in moderation. So I have a question because this is a controversial topic that I came upon, and I know that a lot of Jamaicans have this struggle, or lots of persons in the diaspora. Which is a healthier fat, ackee or coconut oil? Can anybody answer that?
I would say coconut oil.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Richard Pony. I see somebody in the chat just responded, but I can't read it.
The chat says coconut oil.
All right, thanks, Irving. All right, so as I said, it's controversial, and actually ackee is a healthier fat because ackee is a vegetable fat. Yes, it has a lot of health benefits. The coconut oil, there was a controversy saying that coconut oil has a lot of health benefits. Yes, it do. Yes, it does, because it's also good for your skin if you put it on your skin and so on. But if we look at coconut oil that we see in the supermarkets, 80% of that is saturated fat. What I mean by that, look at this picture. The coconut oil, some of it is actually solid at room temperature. So that is a high fat content that you're getting from that coconut oil. So you can do your research, but according to my research, coconut oil is not as healthy, not a healthy fat as we thought it was. So you can research about that. But actually, ackee has healthy fats in it. All right. So another thing that we can do is choose low-fat protein sources. So proteins would be like your meat and your fish and so on. So instead of choosing a lot of fatty meats, you choose lean meat, meaning it doesn't have a lot of fat. Your chicken, fish, low-fat dairy products, and eggs. These are some of your best sources of protein. When you go in the supermarket, you choose skim milk rather than whole milk. And we all should know fish is a good alternative to high-fat meats. And omega-3 fatty acids, these can actually lower the fat in your blood called triglycerides. So triglyceride is another type of fat that is in the blood. You have cholesterol, you have triglycerides. And omega-3 fatty acids can lower your triglycerides. We can find a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in certain types of fish, such as salmon, mackerel, and herring. And there are other sources such as a flaxseed, walnuts, soybeans, and canola oil. So omega-3 fatty acids can help to lower our triglycerides. Another way that we can choose low-fat protein sources is to choose legumes, what we call the beans and the peas and the lentils. Those are good low-fat sources of protein, and they actually don't have any cholesterol. So they're actually good substitutes for meat. No, I'm not telling you to cut out meat altogether because some meats actually have vitamin B in it. So you wouldn't want to, although some people are vegans and they don't eat meat at all, they have to take supplements to get their vitamin B, their B12. But everything you do it in moderation. You can't really get up and just eat pork every day. You can substitute it with some beans, and beans has protein as pork would have protein, so you can use it as a substitute. So substitute plant protein for animal protein, as I was saying before. For example, a soy or bean burger, you use that instead of a hamburger. And this will reduce your fat and cholesterol intake and also increase your fiber intake. A big one, as I said before, is the reduced salt. And this is a problem I think we as Jamaicans have. When I was growing up, my aunt, she actually put salt in cocoa tea. So it adds to the flavor, I guess, but really that's not something that she should be doing. So eating too much salt can lead to high blood pressure, and that is a risk factor for heart disease. So high blood pressure in and of itself puts you at risk for heart disease. Limiting the salt or sodium is an important part of a heart-healthy diet. The American Heart Association actually recommends that healthy adults have no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day, and that is about a teaspoon of salt. If you look at this picture, you see what a teaspoon of salt is. No, this means that this is what you must have for the entire day. You must not pass that limit. Now, if we think about all the things we eat in one day, some things actually have natural salt in them, and then we put more salt on top of that. So imagine if you eat 3 meals a day, how much salt are you really taking in? Do you really know? Because sometimes when we buy food on the road or we buy fries and fast food has a lot of salt in it. And to put this in perspective, there are lots, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's just say that hypertension is like, I don't want to say an epidemic, but a lot of our patients, a lot of people in Jamaica have hypertension. I'm sure each of you must know somebody who have high blood pressure, or you know of somebody with high blood pressure. And the salt is one of the main things. So if you know somebody with high blood pressure, this is one of the things that they can do to reduce their blood pressure. And ideally, we should be having even less than this 1 teaspoon of salt. So what you can do, reduce the amount of salt that you add to food at the table or while you're cooking. And much of these salt we eat come from canned foods or processed foods, such as soups, baked goods, and frozen dinners. If you look at something like a cup soup, trust me, I don't even remember how much milligrams of salt there is. The next time you go in the supermarket or you go to you'd have to, I'm not telling you to buy it. So the next time you go to the supermarket, you can pick up one and look and see how much salt is in one of those cup soups. Eating fresh foods and making your own soups and stews can reduce the amount of salt you eat. If you actually like canned soups and meals that are pre-prepared, you can look for ones that have no added salt or reduced sodium. And I want to big up Grace here. This is not a ad for Grace, but I know one of the things I buy is the reduced salt corned beef. Because if you notice, a lot of the corned beefs have a lot of salt in them. And Grace actually produces that. So that's a move in the right direction. And you must be wary of some of the foods that claim to be lower in sodium, because instead of the regular table salt, they may actually use sea salt in them. And that has the same consequence. So you can choose herbs and spices. Actually, I did have the opportunity of eating food that had no salt, no seasoning, and it was just like herbs like scallion, onion, thyme, those things, and it actually tasted really good. I guess that's what the Rastafarians call ital. But this what I'm talking about was actually chicken, and it tasted really good with just the spices and the herbs alone. Use salt-free seasoning blends, and if you're using the seasoning blends with salt, you don't have to put any more salt on the meat. And you can also use reduced salt versions, as I was saying before, like reduced salt soy sauce, reduced salt ketchup. All right, winding down now, there are hearty swaps. So instead of eating a patty, you might decide that you're gonna make a homemade sandwich with something like chicken breast. Instead of fried chicken, you can use grilled or baked chicken. Instead of soda, actually blend the fruits or vegetables with no added sugar. And this is important because really juice, I was speaking to an endocrinologist that is a specialist that deals with certain what we call endocrine disorders like diabetes. He was saying that he does not believe in juice, that we should not be drinking juice that we buy at, like what we buy at the supermarket or any type of juice. If you want the fruit, you eat the fruit and you drink water. That's what he believes. Sometimes, I'm not knocking anybody, but when we buy these, even natural juices, they have a lot of sugar in them. So it is best to just blend the juice or the vegetable and don't add no sugar to it. That is the best thing. I'm not saying that I do it, but I'm just telling you what is the best thing to do. Sweets and candy. Instead of eating out of sweets and candy, eat the fresh fruits itself, or you eat dried fruits. Cookies and sweet biscuits. Instead of eating the cookies and sweet biscuits, you might decide that you're gonna use some low sugar biscuits, or you actually bake some oatmeal cookies or something with whole wheat flour or something like that. And as I said, I warned you about the cup soup. Instead of drinking that, I wish I could get the sodium content. The homemade make a homemade chicken or fish soup, and check this. It's actually encouraged that you don't use any salt or you don't use any the cock soup mix, because that has a lot of salt in it. But as I said, some of these things you have to do in moderation. So maybe one day you decide you're not going to use the salt, or next day you decide you're going to put a little in there. Bacon, sausage, and frankfurters, those have a lot of salt in them. So instead of using those, you might just decide that you're just going to use low sodium, if they have low sodium sausage, or you can just use the meats themselves and make your sandwich or whatever. And last but not least, after you do pay attention to all of these things, you can plan ahead. Create daily menus. So if you have the week, you have the Sunday evening, you just sit down and say, all right, this is what I'm going to eat for the week. I actually know somebody who does this. So when selecting foods for each meal and snacks, don't forget the snacks. If you eat snacks, emphasize vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. Just always keep that in the back of your mind. I need to put some vegetable in this, or I need to put some fruits in somewhere in the day, or choose lean protein sources. As I said, protein sources that don't have a lot of fats, or you may decide you're choosing healthy fats and limit the salty foods. And watch your portion sizes. This is something that Jamaicans struggle with. We just eat too much. We're just eating too much food at one point. And there is a way, or somebody has done this, where they actually reduce their plate size, and then your mind actually thinks that you're full. When you use a smaller plate, you will be eating less food, and when you finish eating, you'll be like, oh, our food is finished. But then it's like you trick your mind to think that you're full because you have eaten all the food on the plate. So this is something Jamaicans struggle with. As I said before, we eat a lot of rice at one point. So try to cut down the portions that you're eating. And also add a variety to your menu choices. So when you do the plan, it kind of helps you to not be eating the same thing every day, so you don't feel bored. Like every day I get up and eating brown rice, or every day I get up and eating brown bread. You can add variety to it, so it actually creates a visual picture of what are you gonna eat for the week, and how you can mix it up and spice it up so that you don't feel bored that you're eating the same thing every day. All right. So that's what I have for tonight's presentation. So it's just a little thing to whet your appetite for what we have for the rest of the night. So thank you all for listening, and I hope that you can adapt something from this presentation, put some change in your diets from this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Hylton. Brethren, trust me, this presentation is so timely because as Jamaicans, we love the food, and you said it, we just eat, we just cook. And so it's very, very important for us to really keep these tips that you shared in mind as we continue our journey to become happier and healthier. All the persons who are online, I hope you have been taking your notes. Also, please just jot down your little questions, because we will be having our questions and answers segment close to the end of the presentations. So just jot down your question in a safe place, and I hope you're paying attention, because as I said, something may be coming up quickly. But thank you so much, Dr. Hylton. This was very, very informative. And I too have learned so much. Let me well of eat the patty. Yeah, man, knowledge really is power. That way we can make adjustments to our lifestyle. So thank you so much. All right, so we're going to jump to the next thing on our agenda. And of course, we always like to give you an opportunity to win something. So as we said tonight, it's all about affairs of the heart. And we're talking about physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So we have a nice little icebreaker for you. We crave your participation, of course. As I said, we want to make this as fun and interactive as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I know you can't wait to see what activity we will be having tonight, so that you can get the opportunity to win something. I'm going to ask that, Raven, I'm going to ask you to just assist me by, providing with the name of the person who answers, right?
No
so
problem.
that we can make that person, announce that person for everybody to celebrate. So
Sister
this
Alicia,
is
we're going to need your help as well.
Thank you. All the help we can get. Right, so you can, so the first person to answer correctly, right, Sister Rav, they can use the
raise hand feature.
Or they can put their answers in the chat, right?
No, we're going to the raise hand first.
Oh,
the
straight
chat
raise hand.
Okay. Straight raise hand.
All right, so you hear it, guys. So the first person to raise their hands will get the opportunity to answer the question. So let's go. Finish the beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart.
Janiel's hand was first. Elisa, you saw anybody hands first? I saw Janiel's hand first.
Was Janiel first, but she has since lowered it. And then
she lowered it.
Okay, so who is it that still has their hand up?
Camille Lawrence was next.
Yes.
All right. So Camille, you can go ahead and provide us with your answer.
For they shall see God.
That is correct. Bright Sparks. Come on, guys. And remember, we want to make it as interactive. So don't be shy. Don't be shy, okay? We move to question 2.
Lower the hands.
No, lower your hands.
Oh, so after you've answered the question, please lower your hand, okay? Want it to be fair. All right, guys? Everyone that is proud in heart is dash to the Lord. Is it A, a devastation, 2, a sin, 3, an abomination, 4, a pity?
Camille Lawrence was first.
Yeah, she was first again.
Camille?
An abomination.
You're on a roll, Camille. That is correct.
Lower the
We move
hands.
to, remember to lower your hands. We want to give everybody a fair chance. All right, we move to question 3. Who asked for an understanding heart to judge God's people? Is it A, Deborah, 2, Samson, 3, David, 4, Solomon?
Janelle was first.
Janelle, now is your chance.
Samson.
Aww.
Go ahead, Janelle.
Samson.
That's not the answer that I'm looking for, Janelle. Who is next?
Oh, Solomon.
Camille's hands was next, so she can go ahead.
Camille?
Solomon.
That is correct, but Camille, you're on a roll, man. All right, please lower your hands. We move to question 4. Finish the proverb. Proverb, my son, give me your heart and let your eyes. Is it light up the world, guide you always, delight in my ways, or give you peace? Which is it? Peace. Which is it?
Camille again.
Camille again.
No, man, Camille. You don't have nobody who want to go up against you, Camille. Come on, guys, you can do it. What's your answer, Camille?
Delight in my ways.
That is absolutely correct, Camille. Please lower your hands as we move to question 5. Come on, guys. You don't have to be shy now. Yeah, man, try. Question 5. This person was described as a man after God's own heart. Is it David, Samuel, Absalom, or Lemuel?
I'm seeing Janelle's hand was first this time.
Janelle?
Okay. David.
David is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
All right. Please lower your hands. What does Jesus say is the first and greatest commandment? Is it no other gods before me? 2, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. 3, honor thy father and thy mother. Or 4, thou shalt not commit adultery.
Monique was the first person.
Monique, yes, she was the first.
Monique is on the board. What is your answer, Monique? Monique, are you there? Is she typing in the chat?
Monique, you need to unmute.
I'm not sure. Yes,
and thy father and thy mother.
That is not the answer we're looking for.
Tracy Reed.
Who do we have second? Tracy.
Tracy Reed.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength.
That is absolutely correct, Tracy. All right, it's on Camille, have a little competition. No, game time. Question 7, please lower your hands. In the book of Genesis, why did the Lord decide to destroy mankind in a flood? Is it because the people reveled? Is it because the people were mocking God? Or they had become wicked and had evil in their hearts? or there was chaos in the land, which is our answer.
Anointed offering.
Anointed, yes, authorine.
Authorine, what is your answer?
They had become wicked and had evil in their hearts. Number 3.
Absolutely correct. And once again, we're talking about affairs of the heart. Come on, guys, let's go. Question 8.
Lower the hand.
How many times does the word heart appear in the Old Testament? How many times does the word heart appear in the Old Testament? Is it 725 times, 110 times, 365 times, or 1,345 times? Who do we have first?
Janelle.
Janelle, what say you?
This is a guess. Number 1.
Number 1? You sure it's a guess or is Bishop Google help you? Which one?
I didn't go ahead and Google. It's just a guess.
All right, it's not Bishop Google then. You are correct. 725 times.
Okay.
All right. Please lower your hands. How many times does the word heart appear in the New Testament? Is it 98 times, or 315 times, 105 times, or 1,100 times? Which is it? Who do we have first?
Janelle again.
Janelle, you're on a roll, man. What is your answer?
1,100 and 1,100.
Oh, too bad. That was not the answer we're looking for. Who do we have second?
Authorine.
Authorine, your turn.
Is it 2,315?
Not the answer we're looking for. Who do we have next?
Camille is next.
Camille, your turn
Camille.
again, girl. Camille?
98.
98? All right, so right now we reach guesses. What do we do?
Tracy is next.
Tracy, by default.
Tracy is next, so she's going to get the answer and everything.
105.
Wow, but the process of elimination, 105 is correct. All right, are we keeping scores, guys? You're doing well so far. That's good. Good job. All right, we'll move to question 10. According to Mark chapter 7, verses 21 to 23, Jesus spoke of things that defile or makes impure our heart. What are these things? Is it pride and foolishness, evil thoughts and murders, adultery and fornication, or all of the above? Who do we have first?
Authorine.
No, anointed authorine.
Yes,
Authorine.
Yes.
Is it all of the above?
All of the above is correct. Clap yourself, Authorine, but you're going good, man. Camille has lots of competition. All right, we move to, and we're almost finished. Question 11. Complete the scripture. These people honor me with their dash, but their hearts are far from me. Is it lips, hands, sacrifices, or ears?
Lips.
Janelle is
Who do we have? Who do we have first?
Janelle.
Camille. Camille. That was Camille answering.
No,
Janelle.
Oh, Janelle. Okay. You are correct, Janelle. Lips is correct. And lastly, scramble the scripture below using the King James Version and say which book, chapter, and verse of the Bible it is taken from. So you have spirit, despise, and thee, though, are, broken heart, a contrite, a sacrifices, wilt not God, broken, O of God. Of God. Unscramble the scripture below, and we want you to also tell us which book, chapter, and verse of the Bible it is taken from.
Camille is first.
Camille? You said Camille or Janelle?
No, Camille Lawrence. Camille
Okay.
Lawrence.
Camille, go ahead.
I'm coming.
Mm. Camille, you have how many seconds to answer, Madam Producer? About 5?
5. Yes.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm sorry, Camille. We have to move on to the next person. Who do we have next?
Tracy.
Tracy, you
Sister
can go ahead.
Tracy.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Because I remember the song, the sacrifices of God is a broken spirit and a contrite heart. God will not despise. Psalms 51, verse 17.
Okay, Madam Producer working with it. I mean, I heard is. We don't have a is up here, but what do we say? Do we give it to her?
Is. Sorry, is. No, is not here.
All right, is our, I mean, I guess we can give it to her.
Of God are a broken, yeah, man. A broken spirit.
All right, you're
I'm trying to
correct.
remember the
No.
song.
Yeah, ma, you're correct. No. All right, thank you so much for participating. Raven, who do we have as what's the point standing? Sister Raven or Sister Alicia? Sister Alicia or Sister Raven, what's our point standing?
We'll give you in just a minute.
Okay, I know that, quite a number of persons participated, including
Sorry,
Camille.
guys, my internet went.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm
So we know that
sorry.
Sister Camille participating, Sister Janelle, Sister Tracy, and Anointed Asarine. Thank you guys so much for participating. I'm just waiting on the point standing.
Right, so my internet went, guys, so sorry. So we actually have a tie. But it's a good thing because we have 2 prizes.
Oh, lovely.
So the winners are Camille, Lawrence, and Tracy Reed. They each tied for 4.
Woo! Congratulations, Camille and Tracy. Well done. So we will reach out to you to advise you how it is that you can retrieve your prize, right? Thank you so much again for participating. All right, guys, don't feel any way if you never win anything now, because guess what? You will still get the opportunity to win something later on in the session. All right, but for now, we're going to jump right into our next presentation, and we have with us our very own clinical psychologist, Mr. Samuel McDermott. He is also our National Youth Director for the Berean organization, and he's going to come to us now with his short presentation. Samuel, over to you.
Hello, good night, everyone. I like the
Good night.
I like the subliminal message that Sister Frankine just gave. She said, "Short presentation." I've been warned, so I will ensure that I comply. All right, let me try and share the screen. All right, let me know if you're seeing the presentation.
Yes, we are.
All right.
Yes, we are.
Excellent. All right, good night again, everyone who have joined. So tonight we'll be speaking about matters of the heart, and I will be taking it from a mental health point of view, a mental health perspective. Of course, whenever we hear about heart, we often think about, well, let me ask you, when you hear about heart, what emotion do you normally think about, first and foremost?
Love.
Love is
Love, happiness. Yeah.
exactly. The red, and I know that Dr. Foster would say that that's not how the heart is shaped. But you know the heart that you normally see the kind of oval shaped thing. And we often pair it with love, we often pair it with affection. And love is an emotion, so we're focusing on emotions as well. And how when well, let me first of all say that emotions are not bad. You should never try to stifle emotions. You should never try to suppress emotions. Rather, if you do that, it will lead to a plethora of problems. Emotions simply just tell you that you're feeling comfortable or you're in a good place. I've said this before, or something is off, something is wrong. So pay attention to emotions. But what we'll be doing for this couple of minutes is just speak about how emotions can cause physiological problems if not handled or managed correctly, how mental health problems, mental health issues can exacerbate existing physiological conditions, and how your mental health can be affected by stress, by various everyday happenings that we do react to. Well, so we have to include the scripture in all that we do. Proverbs 4 verse 23 says, "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life." Simply put, guard your heart. Anything that seeks to disrupt your peace, anything that seeks to disrupt your communication channel with God, anything that seeks to disrupt your balance, guard yourself from it. The Bible says so. And the Bible is definitely the precursor to everything that is done in the world. It's the guidebook to everything. And I believe that it said God said that in his words because he knows how we can be affected when we don't guard our hearts, or when our hearts are filled with things that are really distressing. So as a link between heart disease and mental health, now a couple of studies have shown that emotional and mental health issues such as trauma, we call it PTSD if it's complex, stress, well, compounded stress, distress, not eustress, depression and anxiety can have an impact on the heart. People living with mood disorders such as major depression, bipolar disorder 1 and 2, they can find that their mood affects both physiological and mental well-being nearly every day for most of the day. So mood disorders can have an impact on your overall well-being. Anxiety disorders, we're just going through some of the disorders that are emotional in nature that can have an impact on you. Anxiety disorders. Now, what are anxiety disorders? It's not a one-off fear of a situation. It's not a one-off thing. When you have a disorder, it has to be consistent over a period of time. So we think of duration when we're diagnosing anxiety disorders. We're thinking of intensity. We're thinking of context. We're thinking of environmental stressors as well. So an anxiety disorder is when people respond to certain objects or situations with fear, dread, or terror. Now, the threat can be real, such as persons who have a phobia of lizards. Well, I shouldn't use that because a lizard is really too small to really hurt you. So let me rephrase that. A threat can be a threat can be real, such as being afraid of the snake that can actually bite you and potentially harm you. And the threat can be imagined, as in Frankie's case, of a lizard, a baby lizard ready to jump on you. Can't really harm you, you understand? So the threat can be real or imagined. And when it is let me call it over the top, it can really cause some stress and some heartache when it is prolonged too, when you have a prolonged anxiety disorder. Now, anxiety disorders include generalized anxiety, which is a general anxious state, a generalized anxious state. And as I said, we deal with duration over a period of time. We deal with intensity and other factors to diagnose generalized anxiety. Then you have social anxiety. This is persons who have a fear of general social interactions. It can be displayed such as persons who this is what persons would call antisocial, which is not really what is antisocial personality disorder, but persons who are just afraid of interacting, persons who have frequent stage frights. If they're supposed to go on stage and do a presentation, they have a real anxious inducing state where they might even have a panic attack. They might have sweaty palms. Some persons might even faint. Panic disorders and phobias. Now, chronic stress. Stress can harm you. Stress can really, really, really harm you. Now, as I had mentioned a word before, I had mentioned the word eustress. No, some amount of stress is good. Eustress is good stress. So if you have an interview in the morning and you feel anxious, so you say, all right, I'm going to prepare as best as possible so that I can feel calm. This anxiety is nerve settling, I need to be calm. Or you have an exam and you start to feel anxious because the days are drawing near and you say, all right, so I'm going to study it, I need to go study. That's eustress and that's good stress. Or if you have you have an upcoming wedding, you have an upcoming presentation, you have an upcoming ceremony. These things are good stress and it helps you with preparation. No, this stress is severe emotional stress now. That is that can come from events that are unexpected. It can come from events that are chronic in nature, such as stress from a household, a stressful job, a stressful living environment, stressful financial situation. Now, when this is compounded and consistent, it can cause physiological harm. It can cause behavioral changes. Some of these changes, some of these behavioral disorders that can come from chronic stress is anxiety, depression, sleep problems, weight gain, memory, concentration impairment, and also digestive problems. Now, I just wanted to mention that, all right, so we have a stress hormone in our brains, right? We have a stress hormone. Our stress hormone is regulated by the hypothalamus. And when we are under any amount of stress, for example, let's say a dog is barking, that's a perceived threat, and that's a stressful situation. And the hypothalamus signals to the brain that, all right, you need to produce cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And that will, or adrenaline. And all right, so I need to either run from the dog or I need to take up something and lick down the dog. I need to get rid of this stress that is here right now. When the stress is removed, such as if the dog leaves or if you leave, then the cortisol levels and the adrenaline levels, it goes back to normal and you're relaxed. Now, chronic stress, and we get into severe stress or trauma in a bit. Now, chronic stress or chronic state of heightened tension or cortisol being released in a bloodstream for an extended period of time. This can cause severe problems. And these are some of the problems that I just mentioned as well. It's almost as if your body is on high alert all the time. Can you imagine? Just imagine if you are seeing a dog that is about to bark at you or about to bite you. That stress that you feel, that anxiety that you feel, with chronic stress, it's almost as if the fear never leaves and it is always there. It is a pervasive thing. Which brings us to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, remember the example that I mentioned earlier. It's as if you flip a switch on to release the cortisol levels and you never turn that switch off. Now, people can experience PTSD after undergoing a traumatic life experience, such as war, such as natural disaster, or any other serious incident. No, and I listed war, natural disasters, and things that we can physically see as traumatic. But there are some emotional events. There are some events such as divorce. There are events such as domestic abuse. There are events such as witnessing a car accident, witnessing somebody shot and murdered. That's trauma. And when you develop PTSD, it's almost as if that switch, that trauma switch is turned on and it never goes off. And you're in a heightened state of arousal for a very long time. For years, people take years to resolve this. Some of the symptoms include flashbacks, like when you're visiting the place, you have very real flashbacks of what happened. Another symptom is panic attacks, very real panic attacks, like your heart palpitating, you feel your heart fluttering. Some persons even faint, some persons even pass out. You have restless nights, you have very vivid dreams. You start to have physiological reactions such as trembling, shaking. And just as anxiety and every other disorder that I mentioned before, this is diagnosed by duration, intensity, etc. Now, PTSD can cause a lot of things. That ongoing stress, that ongoing release of cortisol can lead to heart problems, actually. Can lead to heart disease. It can lead to headaches, as I said, sleepless, restless nights. Now, what are the physiological effects of emotional issues? I touched on some of them. People experiencing depression, anxiety, stress, and even PTSD over a long period of time may experience physiological effects on their body. Increased heart rate, blood pressure, reduced blood flow to the heart, as I mentioned before, heightened levels of our stress hormone cortisol. Now, over time, these physiological effects that stem from the emotional issues can lead to calcium buildup in the arteries, can lead to metabolic disease, and it can also lead to heart disease. Now, there's also another side of the coin, the linkage of mental health and physiological diseases or heart diseases through drug therapy. Now, we often use drug therapy to treat certain mental health conditions. Sometimes it's a mixture of drug therapy and talk therapy, or it is drug therapy alone, or it is talk therapy alone. It all depends on the intensity of the illness. There are some illnesses that you cannot treat unless you do drug therapy. And then when the person starts to get insight, then you can actually do talk therapy with them. Now, the use of antipsychotic medications to treat psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar 1 and 2 disorder. These antipsychotics have been associated with obesity, insulin resistance, and you know that will lead to diabetes, heart attacks, stroke, and yes, in some severe cases, death. Thankfully, there's a remedy to all of this, and we have access to that remedy. Psalms 34 verse 18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted, and he saves the crushed, the bruised, the battered, the broken in spirit." Forgiveness. Forgiveness is a topic that is very touchy. Forgiveness is a topic that it helps us to recall what has happened. Forgiveness is a topic that when we recall what has happened, we don't want to relive and we don't want to go through the trauma of that which we have faced. But look at it this way. Forgiveness is never a gift to the person that you're forgiving. Forgiveness is a gift to you. Now, I put this in here right after PTSD, because I know that, and not even just PTSD, but other emotional events can sometimes lead you to a state of bitterness towards the person or the situation that had caused the event, but it helps when you let go. No, there's actually a model in psychotherapy that helps to walk clients through forgiveness. I've used this model before. It's called the reach model. Now, the first step, the R, is recalling the hurt. There's nothing wrong with remembering the hurt because you have to face it before you can get past it. And a lot of persons use defense mechanisms such as denial, such as sublimation, reaction formation, various different defense mechanisms to forget the pain, to ensure that it does not, they don't acknowledge that it happened. And you have to acknowledge that it happened first before you can move past it. So as I said, the first step, recalling the hurt, allowing yourself to experience and acknowledge the pain and the anger that accompanied the offense. Here comes the hard part, empathizing. Empathizing with the offender by allowing yourself to see things from their perspective and understand the circumstances they may have been facing when the offense occurred. Altruism. Now, remember I said earlier, forgiveness is not a gift to the person. Forgiveness is a gift to you. Now, by the Father, you can now freely offer it to the person. And this is where altruism comes into place. Offer the person the gift of forgiveness, all right? Whether or not it is sought or earned by the offender. In other words, if the offender never come to you and say, I want you to forgive me, or if the offender does not deserve forgiveness, a part of forgiving is still forgiving. A part of forgiveness is forgiving. All right? Forgiveness is not about the offender, but it is about you choosing to release them from your anger and your pain. Now, after you've decided to offer the gift of forgiveness, you have to commit to forgiving. All right? And this can be as simple as telling a loved one or a counselor that you have chosen, verbalize it, say that I have chosen to forgive my offender. Now, what this does is it offers accountability with somebody else. It helps you to remember your decision and it keeps you accountable to standing by it. Now, once you have committed to forgiving, hold on to this forgiveness. All right, stand firm in a decision, even when you feel as if, look how I'm going after I forgive him. Look at this pain, look at this hurt, look at this anger. Holding on to it means that no matter what they do, you're still standing firm in your decision to forgive. A part of forgiveness also means forgiving yourself. Now, there are some situations that we would have had a part in, we would have been perpetrators in, right? And we would have held on to this hurt and we would have held on to this pain, and this pain would have been weighing our hearts down, our emotional hearts down. How do you forgive yourself? Step one, receive it. Open up your hands and receive it. Make things right with what you consider sacred. For us here, it is God. All right? Make things right with God. Next thing that you have to do is repair the relationship. For whoever you have hurt, you have to be the bigger man or the bigger woman, the bigger boy, the bigger girl, whatever it is. Pick up the pieces. Try to repair the relationship. Try to mend the relationship. Put the step forward. Put the foot forward. Rethink your rumination. Sometimes when we have done something that is painful to somebody, instead of dealing with it, our way of self-soothing is going over and over and over and over and over again. That does nothing. The feelings of regret, the feelings of remorse by themselves, it does not do anything, all right? You have to rethink the ruminations. So the ruminations that you're going over and over again, think about why it is that you would have thought that you are perfectionist, all right? Why is it that you are thinking that, how me do this? How could I ever do this? Me too big for do this. How it is that me do this? Understand that you are human and you can fail. And the step to understanding, a part of understanding that you're human and that you can fail is that when you have acknowledged that you're not perfect, you can move forward. rethink the unrealistic assumptions. And after you have accepted yourself as somebody who is not perfect, but precious, that is the key or the step to self-acceptance. All right? After you've done this, make up your mind to not make the mistakes again. It makes no sense to forgive or to be forgiven and decide that, all right, you're going to be presumptuous and you're going to do it again. Ensure that you make up your mind that this is something that you will not do again. And this is what I have to say to you tonight on Matters of the Heart. Thanks for your time.
Wow, thank you so much, Samuel. Quite a very important presentation, because a lot of times we're going through things and many of us don't even know that it is because of whatever emotional or psychological issue that we're experiencing that is contributing to that particular condition that we are experiencing. So thank you so much again, Samuel, for sharing this information with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have been taking your notes. So far, I've been learning so much, and we're about to learn even more as we jump quickly into our main presentation for the evening. Thank you for your patience and your participation so far, and we just ask you to continue to do the same as we continue with the session. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have a renowned cardiologist in our midst. We are very privileged to have him share with us this evening. He has served as I should start here because he has been in the business a long time. So you know that we have a lot of wisdom to receive from this doctor tonight. Now we have in our midst Dr. William Foster. He possesses a Bachelor's of Science degree with honors in zoology, as well as a Doctor of Medicine from the Howard University. He has been the chief resident of internal medicine for New England Deaconess Hospital in the 1970s, and he was also the consultant cardiologist at the University of the West Indies Hospital during 1982 to 2017, and he has since been in private practice in Jamaica since 1972. Now, Dr. Foster is known for his dedication, his consistency, his wisdom, and wit in the pursuit of excellent patient care. He has achieved several awards, including being the recipient of the Jamaican National Award, the Order of Distinction, the Commander Class in 2006, the Intern of the Year Award in 1968 from the Howard University Hospital, among several others. He has also spearheaded arrangements for over 800 patients to go to the US between 1986 and 2020, where they got free open heart surgery from both doctors and hospitals. Now, he has authored over 3 books, the last being Life Experiences in Poetry and Prose, and that is currently available on Amazon. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give a warm virtual Berian welcome to our cardiologist and our presenter for this evening, Dr. William Foster. Welcome, Doc. Over to you. Okay, Doc, you're on mute, Doc. Doc, you're on mute. Your mic is muted. Can we assist him?
Let me try and see. I hope he's hearing us. Doc, unmute again. We're not hearing you.
All right, let's ask him to unmute again on the Zoom. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're able to hear you. Thank you.
But first of all, thank you for your gratuity and your invitation to speak with your group. And I know this is the second time, but forgive me if I do any repetition because I don't normally make notes before I speak. So I hope not to linger too long on what I might have said previously.
That's okay.
I'm speaking to you from my home, and it brings back many precious memories because I had to leave Jamaica to go to foreign to garner degrees and come back to Jamaica to serve as I pleased. With the help of my parents, I got the proper exposure without any distraction, and from the United States without any distraction there too, as you know what has been going on recently. As far as the heart is concerned, I have enjoyed the last many, many years sharing what I have learned and sharing what I have been exposed to. And now I would like to just dip ever so gently, and the previous speaker spoke about forgiveness. So I'm asking for forgiveness if there's any repetition in my enunciations regarding the heart and its behavior. I think the first thing I'd like to say, quite frankly, quite openly, quite clearly, heart disease in women climb a different tree very often than heart disease in men. To begin, we didn't know women could have the same heart disease as we did. And when we did find it out, we found to our consternation and surprise that their presentation was quite often different from our presentation of the same illness, the same heart disease, the same heart attack, the same angina. And just to list a few of these for you is the whole business of pain that doesn't exist in the normal places. Now in a man, in a male, we tend to speak of pain being in the center of the chest and a clenched fist indicating how we feel. That is not necessarily how women present with pain. Yes, they may have it, but they quite often may present with pain in the lower jaw, pain in one or the other arm, pain in, I had a professor who in Miami who spoke to me of pain just in the wrist. You don't know why why is this wrist hurting me? And so, as not to overemphasize these exotic symptoms, one must be aware that if you have something that's lingering and you don't have any clear expression of it, then think about it. Just today, I went with my wife to a doctor because she's having pain in her arm. And would you believe that when I, again, relying on my medical knowledge, I said, well, let's do an x-ray on your neck. Why in the neck, I was asked. And I said, turns out that's where the nerves come from, to the arm. And sure enough, there was a challenge. So you can't always rely on yourself and your wisdom. Well, I didn't have it. He didn't have it. My brother didn't have it. Therefore, wrist pain is not heart pain. That was taught to me, incidentally, by a professor who eventually wrote a book on which I'll tell you something else that is not commonly appreciated. When we go to the doctor in Jamaica, we are told to look for the risk factors for heart disease. And those risk factors for heart disease include, of course, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes. But one of the things, and of course, the previous speaker spoke about high calcium, which indicates that the walls of the blood vessels are not healthy. But one thing that is rarely talked about is high uric acid, secondary to gout. High uric acid, secondary to gout. And in these people, they may have gouty heart disease. No one probably has ever heard of that. But my professor when I was in Washington, Bill Roberts, who is now Professor Emeritus, or rather Editor Emeritus at the American Journal of Cardiology, and an eminent cardiac pathologist in his day, brought to our attention that of a patient in who he dissected a post-mortem on, who they found, who had gout, but who they found in his heart urate acid crystals. Urate crystals, not only in the coronary arteries, but they had affected the mitral valve, penetrated the myocardium, which is the other name for the heart muscle, went to the back side of the heart, squeezed the coronary artery back there, person had a heart attack. Even today, well, I don't know about today, I haven't bought the medical textbook in a few years, but that was written in 1984. And yet it is not widely appreciated that people with gout, or for that matter, people with high uric acids, can have heart disease. So I share that with you as my first little, hopefully, awareness that I may share with you tonight regarding that. Another one I want to touch on is, I heard something today, yet again, while I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room, of one of the Air Jamaica pilots in the days when Air Jamaica was Air Jamaica, who pulled out all the stops to try and get Air Jamaica to remain Air Jamaica. And his supporters, his backers, as you might call them, were there waiting to see if his efforts would make. But after all, he had never flown for anyone else. And he was a man in his 6th decade of life. And it was not just an airline to him. Air Jamaica, when they demised, had not lost a single passenger. I don't know about injuries, those were not reported. And he fought head, tooth, and everything else he could, getting, as our previous speaker spoke of, stress upon stress without intermittent caress. And he developed something which is rare, I'm told, among men, but eminently common among women who are postmenopausal. It's called the broken heart syndrome, otherwise known as, the Japanese who discovered it, by the way, as recently as 1990, referred to it as a Takotsubo heart disease, because it resembled the Takotsubo, which is the fishing pot for octopus. And it basically resembled it because the bottom of the heart, the apex of the heart, would simply balloon as if you're putting air into your mouth, bulging the cheeks. Of course, the poor octopus didn't know all about this, so he couldn't get out the other end. And so it was that a part of the heart, a hefty part of the heart, just simply stopped working. And if you went to a doctor, and I'm telling you this just for your own knowledge, not just so that you can, but share with the doctor, because of the stress that he was having, again, thinking of my previous speaker, the stress was such that his heart stopped functioning. In fact, he developed angina, which is, his heart pain. And he went to a doctor. His ECG showed a heart attack. His blood test showed a heart attack. He went to the coronary unit and did an angiogram. The vessels were clear, clean, normal. The left main pumping chamber was underperforming. And within 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the left main pumping chamber performed normally, and he was better. That's not how heart attacks behave. And so in 1990, when Saito of Japan described this, it was new to the world. The Japanese being the first ones to issue this bit of information, which we know automatically benefit. Primarily in postmenopausal women, almost exclusively in postmenopausal women, and rarely can be found, of course, in men as well as premenopausal, but that's where it happens most commonly. And one suspects that it's a relationship of, here I've arrived at this point. Oh, by the way, they may present with chest pain, just like a normal heart attack. And the doctor thinks I'm onto something, when in fact, if you don't follow the course, you miss it. I had already talked of this illness, but in case my audience is of different personality or persona, I thought I'd touch on it again. Something which we didn't speak about the last time was coronary artery spasm. Coronary artery spasm. The anatomy here is that the coronary artery has muscle. It is a circle of muscle, so that you see this. If you were to look on a coronary artery, on the interior, you have intima, then you have media, and the media is muscle. And under stress, this media, that is muscle, can contract. And with contraction, you narrow the blood vessel lumen, the hole through which the blood passes, and you can constrict it severely enough that the muscle to which the blood is going is denied, and so you have chest pain. When I was in medical school, we were taught that this was more common in women and in men. Now it is not as common as, the difference is not as great as it used to be. First described in 1959 by a fellow called Prince Metal, and then it was called variant angina, meaning not the usual type of angina, but different. And in fact, again, it was associated with a different type of ECG. The ST segments are going up, where in the normal case it would come down. We now realize that that is not necessarily so. In fact, it may not be as variant as we thought. But what is important to recognize is that there may not be any evidence of blockage of the coronary arteries. And it was felt then, as it is now, that this variant type of angina is a daughter of stress. Not eustress, as my colleague pointed out, but stress, the more harmful type of stress. And therefore, it is important to know this exists for this reason particularly. The doctor may be quite correct to say angina, but here is where things go awry. In typical angina, one of the hallmarks of treatment is to give the patient what we call beta blockers, something that makes a heart beat with less frequency and less avidity. It doesn't contract as often and doesn't contract as strong. And that in the earlier literature would be the only thing they needed to treat angina. Something to slow the heart rate down and something to make the heart not contract as vigorously. Well, in coronary artery spasm, as against coronary artery disease caused by blockage, you don't give atenolol, busimolol. You always know when you're getting it because they always end in OL, timolol, atenolol, bisoprolol, any of the lols except LOL. And you hope that that will help you. What is attractive is that do not despair if prescribing this medication does not give you the paradise you wish. Because sometimes you have to prescribe 2 different types of calcium channel blockers. That's what is called, a calcium channel blocker. Sometimes if as many as 3 to put a check upon variant angina, coronary artery spasm. And so do not despair if things don't go right away, because it can be sometimes stubborn. And in fact, to even make the diagnosis, you do a coronary angiogram looking on the topography and the geography of the blood vessels. And in fact, what you see is normal coronary arteries, but the muscles are so contracted in the walls that the lumen, the hole through which blood flows, is narrower than normal. And so you have to give medicines not to bypass a blocked blood vessel, but medicines to relax the coronary artery musculature. The situation that is important to appreciate, and again, I keep making reference to the gentleman who spoke preceding my talk, is that in this day of COVID, stress abounds. Stress abounds. And before I leave COVID, I should share with you something, and you can let me know in your questions and answers, that quite frankly, I have not heard anyone on the planet speak about regarding this thing that we can neither see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. In fact, I put together a little poem on it. Who has seen the wind? Neither you nor I. But when the tree leaves whistle, the wind is passing by. Who has seen the COVID? Neither you nor I. But when there is a cough or sneeze, COVID may be nearby. It is ubiquitous. It does not warn us and gets trouble to all of us. But back to COVID, something else that I've never heard, and you can correct me, you are an audience, and you can let me know if you have, are you hearing me? Hello?
Yes, Doc, we're hearing. Yes, we're hearing, Doc.
Right, something flashed on my screen. I'm accustomed to what they call a live audience, but here we go.
We're here.
Okay. The other thing I want to share with that I have not seen or heard, whether it be the press, the television, the radio, or any communicating interval on the globe. And therefore you are there, the many of you who can tell me if I'm making an overstatement when I say what I'm about to say, is that I do not think that the reason, and it's relevant to Jamaica, that we are having our spiking or surging situation with COVID has been adequately addressed. And the word I want to introduce to you is habit. H is in harassment, A as in apple, B as in boy, I as in Ishmael, and T as in tablet. I've heard no one stress tablet, habit. And yet, when you look at the countries where it has prospered, they have the same thing in common. If we look to our big brother in the north, their rate of loss surpasses any other country, over 560,000 people when I last checked. And when we look in Jamaica, we see a somewhat threatening pattern, surge. And I share this with you, and some of you would have seen of what happened in North Cumberland, in Clarendon, where my schoolmate my college mate. And maybe I should go back first to my high school days. There was a movie shown to us when I was boarding at high school. We would get a movie every month or so to educate us, I suppose. But this one I haven't forgotten in these COVIDian days. And that was the story of a German who came to the United States in one of the world wars to spy. And he was spied upon himself, and he got imprisoned and arrested for being in the wrong place at the wrong time as far as the Americans were concerned. And so they decided to trump what was being done to them by sending their spy to Berlin to do spying. And he was supposed to represent the spy that came from Germany. In terms of his appearance, they found somebody who had blonde hair and blue eyes. Not too many Americans have blonde hair these days at that age. And they taught him how to use a knife and fork European style, with the fork in the left hand, the knife in the right hand. They taught him how to speak German without an American accent. And they taught him Goethe and Kant, Schopenhauer, and other philosophers and playwrights of the day. And they parachuted him into Germany. And they said, okay, you're on your own. They even taught a tooth out his mouth, a healthy tooth, because the person he was supposed to replace, or the person he was supposed to be, had that tooth missing. And they parachuted him into Germany in the rural parts so he could soak up more culture. In other words, they did what all they had to do, to the point where his life was being preserved. And then having gotten that far, he went to Berlin. And after some time in Berlin, he was sitting in a restaurant eating. And outside in the cold, there was somebody out there wrapped up in an overcoat, eyeing him intently. And he couldn't understand he was getting so much unwanted attention. And he looked at himself, looked out there. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And he suddenly found out the fork was in the right hand. Unfortunately, in cases like that, there is no plan B. So you know what happened to him. You can imagine. And so I think this is something which, speaking to you as an audience, you might benefit from sharing with others, that being exposed to social distancing, physical distancing, masking, double masking, washing, is not adequate, in my view, based on what I just told you. In fact, I go further. My roommate, as I mentioned earlier, when we were in college, later came back to Jamaica and became an MP in Clarendon. Cumberland And you all may have heard the story. A policeman who went to Cumberland to break up or get a sit-to. You know, in Jamaica, when you die these days, you have a collection of a gathering for the grave digging, a gathering for the night, and a gathering for the funeral. And he went down there to break up a gathering because there were no masks. Masks, though plentiful, available, were not plentiful in use. And the way he tells me the story, they killed him. Almost remind me of the biblical man who was sent out to get guests to his wedding for his son, and wedding feast for his son. And they didn't just run him. When you send him for Warfest, they killed the messenger, which was to me an extreme approach, but we lost him. And so the thing I want to share with you is that we would rather defend our prerogative, our right to be as we would like, rather than to hearken to the voice of somebody else. Why are we failing in Jamaica? Here is my view. Our Prime Minister lives in a country where, according to the UK economists, we are a flawed democracy, or the other term, a threatened democracy. Why? Again, according to the UK economists, our voter turnout is very low for our elections. And then they have other parameters they look at to see why we're not as agile in the voting booth, but fragile in terms of listening to each other. And when the Prime Minister speaks to you, can then imagine that he's only speaking to a small fraction of Jamaicans who listen to him anyhow. And as a result, he's not getting the attention of the whole Jamaican. This, I think, is at a time when the whole Jamaica needs to be under manners, to borrow the late Prime Minister Manley's remark, and to be responsive to the needs of the nation, not the needs of themselves. I remember going to a church a few months ago, rather. And when I was trying to park my car, the parking attendant said, "Park over here." And I said to him, "Good morning, sir. Why aren't you wearing your mask?" And he looked at me, "Doc, how government propaganda that's our government propaganda." And so another guy saw with a mask would make a bikini look like a bikini. Couldn't cover his nostrils and his mouth at the same time. And he said to me, "Well, I don't wear it all the time, you know." So there is a lot of education that needs to be done and a lot of persuasion that needs to be done before you can have suasion. So I share that with you. I don't normally keep an eye as to how much time I'm spending, but these are the messages I'd like to get across to you. The whole business of distinguishing between angina, heart disease, leading to a heart attack.
Yes.
Let us not forget stress. As my previous speaker spoke about, there is good stress, and then there's the other type of stress, which leads to depression, which leads to severe depression, which leads to heart disease, not to mention more than a few. So at this point, I just want to end by saying thank you for inviting me. And I hope that my little nourishment in this August company, even though it is still only April, has been appreciated. And thank you so much.
All right, and thank you too as well, Dr. Foster. Trust me, we really do appreciate the wealth of knowledge that was just shared. And I'm sure that after tonight, many of us have a lot of adjustments to make, whether it be to our lifestyle or just overall to how we respond to certain triggers around us. So thank you so much. And I'm just going to ask, just checking that the other two presenters, Dr. Hylton and Mr. McDermott, you're still on, because right now we're going to jump quickly into our questions and answers segment. And the questions may be directed to any of our presenters. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask you to either use the chat option, or you can raise your hands or unmute your microphone to ask your question to any of the three presenters. Right, guys, remember, it's best that we ask all the questions now. Knowledge, it can save lives, right? So ask the questions, right? Don't leave here tonight being uncertain of something. If you're experiencing, something, you want to know what's the best advice to take, you don't have to use your name, use another name, use a random name, speak in the third person, right? But ask the questions. No, don't leave with the question, right? And not get it answered. All right? Do we have anybody in the chat as yet? Let's just give them a little time. Let me see if we have anybody who's raising their hands. Everybody can hear me, right? And see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just checking, because I realized I don't see the chat buzzing just yet. So let me just give you a few more seconds. But overall, tonight we learned a lot of information that we can apply to the spiritual, the physical, and the emotional. All right. I'm going to ask again, do we have any other questions? Do we have any questions?
All right, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yes, my question is it safe to take aspirin as an adult, be it male or female, and or often? Somebody over 50, is it okay to take aspirin and how often? And what dosage is the best to take?
Okay. So we're going to direct that question to Dr. Foster.
Thank you for asking. The efficacy of aspirin is best appreciated if you've had an event, like a blockage of a coronary artery, for example. What happens essentially is that the most common cause of a blockage really is bleeding from a fractured plaque in the vessel wall. That substance in the vessel wall runs into the lumen, or the hole through which the blood flows, and quickly clots. And in clotting, prevents further blood supply. So in that sense, the aspirin is being used to prevent the progress from progressing. In the other sense, you can take aspirin to prevent the problem from developing. What I recall so well, anecdotal, yes, of a patient who came down from Central Florida as a consultant to Daniel and Geddes, I believe, who was taking aspirin religiously to prevent a heart attack. And he bled and bled and bled and bled on foreign soil. Wow. So, he wasn't too happy that the aspirin which he had come to rely on had betrayed him in a foreign country. So you have to weigh everything. You have to weigh everything.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Foster. Do we have any other question? I have one to be directed at Dr. Hylton. As Jamaicans, many persons like to substitute medication for herbs. No, so they may go to the doctor and they may get a reading to say, you know, their blood pressure is a bit elevated. So they get the medication, but you know, from they take it maybe the first 3 days and they feel like, "Troll, it gone back to normal now." So they probably just stop taking the medication because they're probably saying they don't want a lot of drugs in their system, and they probably just go and drink some garlic tea or so. How important is it that we stick to the dosage for the medication? And kind of just tell us a little bit about using herbs as a replacement or using herbs in tandem with the medication.
Okay, Frankine, thank you for that question. The issue with herbs versus actual like tablets that we as a doctors would give is that most of these herbs are not well studied. That is one. For garlic, we know that it does reduce blood pressure. But the question is how much garlic? So you have some people that might take 1 peg of garlic, some people say 2 pegs, some people chew it, some people boil the tea and drink it. So all of these various methods might have a different concentration or a different amount of garlic that is entering the system. So it's not really something that is well measured. So when we, as a doctor, prescribe a certain amount of tablets and a certain frequency, we know that that is something that is measurable. So that is why it is better to take something that we can actually say, all right, if your blood pressure does not go down, we know that we can increase the dose a bit or so. As opposed to garlic, we don't really know the various strength and concentration of what you're taking at home, and different people take different amounts. It's not advisable to take both herbs and your regular medication because what can happen, as I said before, we don't really know how much you're intaking of the herbs. And this can cause issues in terms of a fall in your blood pressure if you take both of them together. And many Jamaicans, they're not really checking their blood pressure at home, so they don't really know when it is getting low. And that can present other issues and other problems. Also, some of these herbs, if they're taken in excess, they can have effects on the liver as well. A lot of bush, people drink bush teas and so, but if it's done in excess, it can have effects on your different organs, especially the liver. So it is my advice to stick to what the doctor is saying. If you think you're a herbal person, if you want to go that route, don't mix the two together.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Hylton. So don't mix. Sorry, is it me? So don't mix the two and complete the dose that the doctor recommend, right, Dr. Hylton? And Dr. Foster, complete the dose. Don't take it halfway.
Well, just to add to what my colleague has said, the fact of the matter is no one likes durability, except perhaps a happily married couple. And therefore you want to get, well, my wife is sitting nearby me and that's 51 years. So we have managed this far. But the point I'd like to make, however, is that we all want a quick fix, and you get it with pneumonia, the STDs for the main part, or the flu. But the fact of the matter is that high blood pressure, diabetes, these are not quick fixes. And unless you have the discipline, the desire, the determination, the dedication, you're not going to get better. You'll pause it for a time, but then it's like pressing the pause button on the one of these 20th century contraptions. And so I think the point is made. And of course, the other thing to bear in mind is that, as my colleague says, you don't know what is the dosage. I have had patient after patient after patient come to see me after seeing 2, 3, 4 doctors for their high blood pressure. And I want to know, how come I'm sick again? And the answer is, you didn't follow the advice. You didn't go back to the doctor. So let me stop there.
Wow. Thank you for shedding some light on that further, Dr. Foster. Do we have any other questions? No? All right. Samuel, just one for you before we go. I know that there are a lot of persons who they don't willingly acknowledge that, okay, they are having, some emotional issue, right? And so this person here, they probably know they feel a way, Jamaicans like some feel a little way, but we don't really know what is happening. What are some of the things that you can recommend to kind of help persons to understand what it is that they are going through, and how would you help them to really get over this? I know you spoke about something in your presentation, which I'll be asking a question on, but how would you, encourage persons to really understand that what they're going through, it's more than a physical issue, the root?
All right. I know that some persons would advise against this, but you actually do have a lot of legitimate online therapists who have started to move beyond just the therapy room. So I know that TikTok is an app. TikTok is an app that is widely used by persons. And for those who don't know what TikTok is like a video sharing app, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not anywhere, Samuel. Sorry. If you could maybe speak a little closer to the mic. You sound a bit far.
Oh. All right. You hearing me now?
Yes. Much better.
All right. Yeah, I was saying that social media is a thing that therapists have started to utilize in psychoeducation, in educating persons. And I was mentioning that TikTok, it's a video sharing app. I have realized that a lot of therapists have started to use telepsychology and have started to actually not just TikTok, but Instagram as well. They have started to post videos, infomercials, and informational videos on what some symptoms of depression are, what some symptoms of anxiety are, what some symptoms of other emotional disorders are. And in listing the symptoms, they've also started to list some possible ways of kind of alleviating these symptoms. Kind of like I would call it a mental health first aid. You can't get to the hospital right now when you have a cut on your hand. You use some techniques around the home, like your band-aid or so on, to dress the wound until you can get to therapy. And even for persons who fall prey to depression and might have self-harm on their mind, suicidal intent on their mind, practicing or utilizing some of these techniques that are online, that are made known, can help to alleviate these symptoms until it can get to therapy. Now, in terms of identifying when something is really a problem, there's a level of functioning that we all know that we can function at. And if you realize that there is an issue that you're dealing with that has started to affect, one, your quality of life, your daily standard of living. If you also notice that it is starting to affect how you interact with persons, if you have noticed that there's any changes in your personality or changes in how persons are perceiving you, then these can be also tools of insight into realizing that this emotional thing is not just me feeling a way, it's something really serious that is now starting to impact on how I'm living.
Wow, thanks for shedding some light on that for us. I'm seeing we have a question in the chat. What does one do when I think this is generalized anxiety disorder episodes are, for example, twice per week? Sorry, I'm hearing a feedback. I'm not sure whose is it. But the question is, I think that's for Samuel. What does one do when the generalized anxiety disorder episodes are, for example, twice per week?
Twice per week is a cause for concern. That's heightened stress on your heart, especially if you're having severe panic attacks. That's a lot of stress on your body. That's a lot of stress on your mind. I would say talk to a therapist ASAP, like yesterday. Yesterday, and yeah, sometimes this can include drug therapy, where a psychiatrist actually prescribes medications to help with stabilizing your anxiety attacks. And it can also involve talk therapy, as I said before, a mixture of both, where you can now learn techniques in dealing with. And when I say techniques, not just talking, but practical techniques. I believe in another presentation I had mentioned grounding techniques. All right, so grounding technique is a form of distress tolerance. So we can't always get away from distress. We can't always get away from emotions, but we can learn to tolerate them, tolerate the wave of distress as they pass. A part of doing this is grounding yourself to the present reality, being aware that, all right, this is a temporary thing and it will pass in time. One very simple technique is engaging your five senses. So for example, you name 5 things that you can see. You name 4 things that you can smell, or 4 things that you can hear. You name that you can touch. You name 2 things that you can smell. And you name one way in which your mouth is tasting now. You see, by the time you go through all of that, you would have given yourself time to tolerate the wave of anxiety, and you would have shifted kind of trick your brain. You would have shifted the focus from the distressor to your senses and what your senses are experiencing now. As the word says, grounding yourself to reality.
Wow. Thank you so much, Samuel. Really appreciate that response. And thank you as well to Dr. Foster and Dr. Hylton. No, ladies.
Is it bad to question now? It's too late? I have a question for Dr. Martell.
Sorry, you can go ahead quickly.
Okay, in light of what Dr. Martell has said about coconut oil, I want to ask, somebody had said that some persons with Alzheimer's, I think, they took like a tablespoonful in the morning and in the night, and it tend to sort of reverse it to a point. I don't know if that was true, if one of them did studies on it. Could they give us a little information more on it? Cold pressed coconut oil.
Okay, thanks, Bishop Bonis. Now, as it relates to the coconut oil, I did say that it has other health benefits, but I would have to do more research on the Alzheimer's. As it relates to Alzheimer's, it is an irreversible progressive disease. So to reverse it, maybe they meant that it slowed down the progression, but there's nothing that has proven to reverse Alzheimer's as yet. So I would have to do more research on whether or not coconut oil is good for reducing or slowing the progression of Alzheimer's. But there are other health benefits, and remember that anything that we're using, we must use it in moderation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Hylton. Bishop, I trust that answers your question.
Yeah, man. Yes, thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, so before we close off, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to give 3 persons the opportunity to win something else. Now, if you never get to win something earlier in the icebreaker, this is your opportunity. Remember, we told you initially, listen closely, listen carefully. So we're going to ask a question, right? And the first person to respond will win. Easy cheesy questions, as we always say. All right, now Dr. Hylton in her presentation made reference to ways in which we can lower the risk of cardiovascular diseases. I want for someone, right, one bright sparks, to raise their hand. So Reverend and Elise, they're going to help me out here. And after you've acknowledged, you're going to provide us with 3 ways of lowering the risk of cardiovascular diseases. The doctor made mention of a number of things that you can do or adjustments you can make. So I want you to mention 3. Easy question. Let me see. All right, Tracy Reed, I see you. You can go ahead and unmute.
To reduce, right? You said, don't smoke.
To lower the risk of cardiovascular diseases.
Reduce your blood cholesterol. Lower the risk of heart disease. No smoking. No drinking. I'm just guessing.
You're guessing.
All right.
I want something specific, man. Were you telling me? She made mention to it, but it's kind of general. She gave us some little specifics. I'm giving you a little hint. And then she branched off and she said, for example, this, for example, that. All right. Hold on, Tracy.
I'm gonna finish answer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna finish answer. I said no smoking, not smoking.
Right. No? You said
right,
that.
That is one, right?
And you said lower cholesterol.
Yes.
And you said lower heart disease.
And blood pressure. Reduce your blood pressure. Your blood cholesterol. Sorry. Reduce.
All right. Okay.
You want more?
All right. So we note it. You give us 3, man. We note it. We note it. Camille, let us hear you. Camille, you can go ahead and unmute.
She said eat more fibers, like for wheat bread, things that contain wheat. And she said the oil, use less oil and less sodium.
All right. So who came the closest? Dr. Hylton? I think Camille is our winner because she did in fact break down based on the categories you gave. She gave us directly from that listing. So congratulations, Camille, and well tried, Tracy. But don't worry yourself, not Tracy, because we have other questions. Camille, I'm going to ask you to lower your hand. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this other easy, cheesy, peasy question. Now, Mr. McDermott shared with us ways in which, well, he did point out that there are some emotional issues that contribute to physiological diseases. And he mentioned that one way of overcoming emotional issues is forgiveness, right? This will reduce the risk of physiological diseases. And he mentioned one particular model. Now, as I say, easy. He mentioned a particular model for forgiveness. See, I'm giving you even hint. I want for somebody to tell me what the model is. It is actually an acronym, and I want you to tell me what each letter stands for. Easy question. So what is it? All right, Shireen Cunningham, I see you. You can go ahead and unmute.
Well, the acronym is REACH. I'm going to try to remember all of it.
All right, Shireen, let us hear you.
REACH, recall the event. I think recall.
Yes.
Empathize.
Okay.
I'm at A, right?
Yes, you're at A now.
A truism, something like that. I think what the word.
But that's all right.
A and it's ISM.
Okay.
C.
You're at C.
Commit. C is to commit.
H. And
H is to hold.
All right, not bad, Shireen. Not bad. Samuel, what you said? She was listening?
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Excellent. Good job, Shireen. Congratulations. You have won a prize. And lastly, ladies and
Thank
gentlemen,
you.
one other easy question. Now, Dr. Foster made mention that men and women may get different signs that they may have an underlying issue or an underlying heart condition, right? And women may get the signs in different places from men. I want for you to tell me two of the unusual places that women display these signs. So two of the unusual places that women may get signs that suggest that they may have a heart condition. All right, Daniel Palmer, you can go ahead and unmute.
In the hands and in the neck.
In the hand and the neck. All right.
Like your
So,
wrist, like your wrist.
Awesome. I was listening for you to be a bit more specific. Thank you. In the neck and in the wrist. She was correct. Dr. Foster? All right, that is correct. Congratulations, Danielle. All right, so good job, ladies and gentlemen. You have been listening, and I can tell that you have learned a lot. I too have learned a lot, and I'm sure we will be making the adjustments where necessary to ensure that we become happier and healthier spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And with this, we come to the end of this month's episode of our Health Forum. And we want to say a big thank you once again to all our speakers, Dr. Hylton, Dr. Foster, Mr. Samuel McDermott. Thank you so much to you, our participants. It wouldn't have been a success without you. And remember, we do it again next month on the last Monday, right? So you can look out for the communication advising what we will be focusing on so that you can be further advised. We also want to remind you that if it is that you want to rewatch these sessions or you want to pass on the information to a colleague who didn't get the chance to tune in, or a brother or a sister, you can tune in to the Berean Women's Board YouTube page, right? You'll get some communication with it subsequent to this meeting. You can check out the recording on our YouTube page, right? And you can also check out our Facebook page at BCOGI Women's Board JA. Right? And you'll be able to get further information on our women's ministry as well as rewatch these sessions. We also want to remind you that of some upcoming events. We have prayer meetings and Bible study on Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Alberta time, 7 p.m. Jamaica, 7 p.m. USA and Ontario. Our National Women's Board meets weekly for a prayer meeting. That's on Saturdays at 6 a.m., right? And our National Youth Board will be having our Bible quiz competition. The deadline for entries is April 30th. That's this Friday. And there's a new participant age range, which is 16 to 35. And the start date for the competition is Saturday, May 29th, 2021. So you can look out for that. And once again, the grand finale of the Women's Health Forum will be next month. That's May 24th, same time, 7 p.m., right? And you can look out for the communication. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, once again, this evening wouldn't have been a success without your participation. And so we want to say a big thank you once again. And as we close out, we of course want to do a quick prayer. So I'm just going to ask that you pause where you are as we just go to the throne of grace. Heavenly Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for who you are. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you that you are God and you are God alone. And we thank you that you have allowed us the opportunity to even meet in this fashion, that we can share, that we can learn as much as we can. as we make adjustments to on our journey to become happier and healthier spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I pray, God, that you'll continue to cover us. I pray that you'll continue to bless the presenters that we had tonight. You'll continue to open windows of opportunity for them as they continue to impact lives all over the world, mighty God. I pray that you'll continue to keep us safe, wrap us in your arms, mighty God. Keep us under your wings, mighty God, even as we are about to go to our beds, mighty God. We pray that you'll just tabernacle with us and you'll send your angels to watch over us. Keep us safe, mighty God. We know that you are able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can even ask or think. And so, God, we give you all the glory, we give you all the honor, and we give you all the praise. And we tell you thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for lending us your ears, for lending us your screens, and for allowing us into your space. Do enjoy the rest of your night. God bless you.